Good evening. My name is Jason Wallace. I'm the pastor of Christ Presbyterian Church here in the Salt Lake Valley, and we welcome you to another installment of the Ancient Paths. We're privileged to have with us this evening Mr. David Berg. He is a member of People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, PETA, and also the director of the Utah Animal Rights Coalition. Am I correct on the, okay.
That is correct, yes.
Get tongue-tied on live TV and it's easy to get messed up. Tell us, on Monday you had a protest at the McDonald's down at 2nd South and 7th East.
That's right.
What was that all about?
That was with Chrissy Hine, the founder and longtime member of the rock group The Pretenders, who played the night before at the Red Butte, quite a fabulous show. They were down there passing out unhappy meals, trying to bring attention to the inherent cruelty in McDonald's products, especially, and we're calling especially attention to the way the suppliers of McDonald's treats chicken. People don't realize, a lot of people would be surprised to know that more chicken is sold in the United States by McDonald's than even Kentucky Fried Chicken. So we're asking them simply to adopt a little slightly less cruel practices in the short lives of the animals that are then served up to people.
Now, you have a box here that shows some of the
That's right.
Some of the promotional materials for this, where it has Ronald with fangs and a dripping butcher knife.
Yes, indeed.
So you see McDonald's as evil.
Well, evil may be a strong word. It's what they do is unnecessary. What happens on behalf of McDonald's is unnecessary, and I think surprising to even the customers of McDonald's. Now, of course, we advocate a vegan or vegetarian diet, but at the very least, I think most people would agree with that a less cruel treatment to animals before they're killed, at the very least. We're asking people to boycott McDonald's until they at least adopt a little more humane, a little less cruel standards, such as are required in Europe. And McDonald's, even in Europe, is abiding by those. There's something known as controlled atmosphere killing, where the oxygen, before they enter the slaughterhouse, oxygen is slowly denied, and they basically go to sleep. Now, naturally, it's unfortunate. It's not the best thing in the world, but at least animals do not experience, live sentient animals don't experience blades going through their throat or their bones being crushed or killed in scalding water. And I think even most customers, even people who eat chicken, would agree that at least it should be a little less cruel before it gets to their plate.
Now, you alluded to something in what you just described, that your ultimate goal is that McDonald's would not even be allowed to sell meat, right?
Well, that's not exactly. The ultimate goal would be that McDonald's wouldn't want to sell meat, or, after all, they're not in it. They don't care about whether they sell meat or not. At the end of the day, they care not whether they make a buck. And it's been, as they did a study, even McDonald's commissioned a study in 2005 as to the less cruel standards if they were to adopt that here in the United States, and it was determined by McDonald's that if they were to do that over the long term, they would even save money. So,
well, one of the things is that you have people who argue for the humane treatment of animals. Mm-hmm. And they recognize that there's a huge difference between humans and animals, and they want humane treatment, but they're not pushing for any greater agenda. But the founder of PETA, Ingrid Newkirk, said, mm-hmm. There is no hidden agenda. If anyone wonders what's with all these reforms, you can hear us clearly. Our goal is total animal liberation. Mm-hmm. And so you're not, I mean, this is sort of an incremental step towards the ultimate goal. You want to do away with not only meat consumption, but even pet ownership.
Well, pet ownership, once again, is a little bit of a misnomer and strong word. Yeah, pet ownership, absolutely. Just like we would love to, I as a person would love to see human ownership done away with, even children ownership, which of course up until, even as late as the early 20th century in the United States, children were seen more as property of their parents rather than a member of the family. It's kind of the same thing. There's responsible guardianship, and we absolutely would. I, for example, am the guardian of a loving cat that I adopted from a rescue, and unfortunately had to see my 18-year-old dog that was also a rescue died just last February. So there are a lot of rumors going around. The truth is, it's just equal consideration. Just equal consideration. What are these living sentient beings going through, and is it really necessary for us to put them through that? At the end of the day, I think most people would say, no, it's not.
Okay, well, now, once again, Ingrid Newkirk, she said, I don't use the word pet. I think it's speciesist language. In the same way that you were talking about racism, racist language. She says it's speciesist language. I prefer companion animal. For one thing, we would no longer allow breeding. People could not create different breeds. There would be no pet shops. If people had companion animals in their homes, those animals would have to be refugees from the animal shelters in the streets. You would have a protective relationship with them just as you would an orphan child. But as the surplus of cats and dogs artificially engineered by centuries of forced breeding decline, eventually companion animals would be phased out, and we would return to a more symbiotic relationship, enjoyment at a distance.
Well, Ingrid Newkirk is speaking of a theoretical, long-term thing, and I can't speak for Ingrid Newkirk, but I can say that it's generally accepted within the animal protection movement that indeed breeding of animals, when there are millions that are killed every year because there are not enough loving homes, that to create more of that problem, to add to that problem, is absolutely, it's unconscionable. People really should take a second consideration. I think that a lot of people would agree with that instead of, paying, doing like, say, Paris Hilton, and having a prize trophy animal, to carry around in a handbag for, paying thousands of dollars for this living sentient being. Why not? There are other living sentient beings that are just as cute, that are just as adorable, that will be killed because there's not enough homes. And I think that that's pretty well accepted. And indeed, the idea of, you can call it what you will, but to call cats and dogs that live with us our companion animals, I think is a lot more reflective of the true nature of their relationship a lot of times. After all, people do think of them as a member of their family, as part of their family, not just a trophy, hopefully.
Now, your organization, of which you're a director, you're the director, correct?
That's right.
Of the Utah Animal Rights.
The Utah Animal Rights Coalition.
That's
correct.
How do you differ from PETA?
We are a 100% volunteer organization, and we have the ultimate same goals in a lot of respects, to really, once again, to try to foster compassion and to foster just a little more consideration for these lovely, beautiful, living, sentient beings that are right now being tortured, killed, and mutilated unnecessarily.
I'm curious, you use the term rights, Utah Animal Rights.
That's right.
You believe that animals have rights. What are those rights, and from whence do they come?
The rights of equal consideration. It's really as simple as that. If it's unnecessary to torture a living sentient being, Well, and you choose to do it anyway. That's what do you say about that?
But where do those rights originate?
Where do the rights originate?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's more than rights. That's just simplification of equal consideration. It's hard to put it in a organization's name to say, the Utah organization pressing for consideration for living sentient beings.
So you're asking for consideration, but a lot of people are arguing for rights, and I mean PETA itself, people for the ethical treatment of animals. I mean,
Absolutely.
You're a member of PETA.
I am.
Those ethics, what is the basis of those ethics?
Well,
I mean, is it something that is just asserted, or is it something that there's some philosophical or theological basis that you believe that undergirds those rights and ethics?
Well, I think for each individual, you would ask of the millions of of people fighting for and arguing for consideration for these living sentient beings. I think if you were to ask each one of them what that means and what the basis of it for, I think you'd get a different answer from each and every one of them.
Now you're the director of the Utah Animal Rights
That's
Coalition. Right. I'm curious, what kind of philosophical background are you coming from? Are you coming from a theist or an atheist position? What kind of background guides your personal views?
Compassion. I looked in the eyes of, I've looked in the eyes of tortured animals. I've looked in the eyes of animals as they were about to die, and that.
I understand, but I mean, are you a theist? I mean, do you hold to some religious system, or are you
I personally am agnostic. However, in the Utah Animal Rights Coalition, as in PETA, there are people of the gamut, run the gamut from Mormon to born-again Christian to Presbyterian to Unitarian to Jewish, all along. I think amongst and many of the religions do teach as one of their fundamental basis compassion for living sentient beings.
Now I'm curious. I hope I'm not being unjust in the assumption here. From an agnostic worldview,
yes,
I would assume you're an evolutionist in your view of the origins of man.
That is the view that I see personally. But that's me speaking as David Berg, not as PETA, as Utah Animal Rights Coalition. And really, I personally don't think that the wanting to see animals more humane, less cruelly treated, more humanely treated, has anything to do with whether what my religious beliefs are.
I understand that you're not speaking for the entire organization or the leadership or anything like that. I'm curious how this all fits in terms of values and ethics, because within a Darwinian framework, it is survival of the fittest, and you have tremendous cruelty within nature. You have animals killing animals. And Ingrid Newkirk, once again, in this line of speciesist kind of thinking, she says, there's no rational basis for saying that a human being has special rights. A rat is a pig, is a dog, is a boy. They're all animals. If you hold to that view that people are no more than animals, and there's nothing special about us, then how can you argue for compassion in the first place?
Well, I don't think that she says there's anything not special about humans. I think that clearly we have the capacity to reason. We have, as do many animals, other non-human animals. But we also have, as do many other animals as well, the capacity for compassion and the capacity to really be reflective of ourselves and our actions, and consider how they're affecting other living sentient beings, not only other non-human animals, but also our fellow humans. And we're able to, hopefully, we're able to decide to do things a little bit differently than we've done them before, and such.
There seem, and I'm not trying to be hard on you here, but it seems there's a disconnect in that if we are all animals, and Ingrid Newkirk's biography was "I am an animal," right?
Right. I am animal, I think is what it is. Yeah.
I am animal. If there's nothing that is inherently better about human beings and qualitatively different about human beings, why should we aspire to anything? I mean, why is there, what is the measure of good and evil?
Because well, the ability to see, if the ability to see such cruelty is what goes on in McDonald's suppliers, for example.
But I mean,
and to continue to support that and not even try to, at the very least, compel them to treat their animals a little less cruelly. I think that alone, that.
But you're arguing something that, you know, from a Christian standpoint, there is a moral basis that God has created human beings. He has given us rights and duties, and there is to be a compassion because we're given charge over animals. We're to be good stewards. The Bible actually says in Proverbs 12:10, a righteous man regards the life of his animal. And there are encouragements towards mercy and towards a nobility in man. But if you believe that man is nothing more than an animal, then on what basis is anything right or wrong? You know, outside of a Christian worldview.
Compassion.
I mean, the animals themselves are not compassionate. The animals themselves devour each other.
Some do. Some are compassionate. We've all seen one animal groom another, or even between species. A friend of mine has a cat and dog who are best friends, and you'll see them often, you know, cleaning each other's eyes, licking each other's ears, and you know, there's clearly a love for each other. There's clearly a compassion, and I think that humans have that same capacity for compassion. Of course, many animals do.
But most cats and dogs don't exhibit that behavior. Most cats and dogs fight like cats and dogs. I mean, we get the whole expression from that. They do indeed amongst each other sometimes, but each one of them certainly displays love and compassion, often for humans, for their human guardian, if they're a good guardian, hopefully, as well as other, you know, select. Who knows what's going on in their mind exactly, but it's clear that they can display, you know, some of those traits of love for each other, as can humans, very much so. Tell you what, let me rephrase my question because I think it might make it clear. Why is compassion, as you define it, good? I mean, if a cat were compassionate, if cats all of a sudden were very compassionate towards dogs, most of them would die because of it. Because dogs are generally not compassionate towards cats. You know, lions are not exactly compassionate towards gazelles.
But I know many Christians, for example, believe that the lion will lay down with the lamb. I think that to kind of set that example, we need to stop eating the lamb, or at the very least, see that the lamb is not tortured before we eat it. I would advocate not eating it at all.
So this is part of
much as the lion will one day do in Christian teaching, as I understand it.
Well, and see, part of that disconnect, I think, is shown there in that you have a publication that deals with Christianity and your views of animal relations. But we see in the Bible that animals are given to man to be food.
Mm-hmm.
We see that there is a clear distinction between animals, and that Ingrid Newkirk's idea that a rat is a pig is a dog is a boy. No, that's
well, that is
hostile.
Well, again, that is her view. That may not be the view of individual animals. I don't think she was speaking on behalf of PETA or any of the members of PETA at the time, rather offering her own personal philosophy. And I think it's very valuable to listen to each and every individual's personal philosophy and take that into consideration. The idea that the idea that many Christians espouse that indeed animals are here for our use for good stewardship. Of course, the best stewardship is to take care of them, to give compassion to them, and if it's unnecessary, not eat them. If you're unnecessarily doing something, if you're doing something that is unnecessary, that has cruelty at its base, that has absolute pain and agony at its base, and you do it anyway. That's my understanding of gluttony. And I know gluttony is a large sin in many religions, not just Christian religions. And I think that not only does it do ourselves harm, it does our minds harm as well. It also harms not only other animals, it harms other humans to consume animals, for example. To cycle the grain, that Earth, God, whoever you say, provided for us first through an animal before you then consume it is incredibly ineffective. If every American, just in America alone, were to consume 10% less animal products, the excess grain would end world starvation.
I'm curious, Jesus ate the Passover meal, which included a lamb. He brings a great catch of fish to his disciples on a couple of occasions. Am I understanding you correctly? You believe that's evil to eat animals?
Well, I certainly would hate to be in judge of Jesus, wouldn't I? And not only that, but what is said. I claim to be no expert on that, and I can only offer my own personal thoughts on it. And I know that if Jesus were alive today, I do not believe he would provide us. I believe he'd choose another alternative to seafood to feed his feed his disciples. I don't think that he would poison them with mercury, with arsenic, with pesticides, with so many other toxins that you find in fish these days. And I understand you didn't compose this. The frustrating thing for me, from what I hear from a number of sources, is they take passages out of context and they ignore the larger picture and ignore, Jesus can turn water to wine, but he also miraculously provides a huge catch of fish, and they eat, they end up eating them there on the shore. And some people say that's a parable, that is a story. Some people say it was actual facts. I say, well, I don't know.
It's recounted as history. It's not recounted as a parable.
I don't know. Okay. I wasn't there. Okay. But I know that if Jesus was here today, I really truly believe that he would seek compassion for the animals. I really truly believe that he would absolutely advocate people abstain from cruelty. I would absolutely believe that Jesus would ask his followers to consider kindness, to consider compassion, and to consider preserving this earth of ours through whatever means necessary. And I know that a lot of people are concerned about global warming, for example. According to the 2006 report on global warming, it was pointed out that animal agriculture is more damaging to the environment and contributes more to global warming than all forms of transportation combined. More animal agriculture is responsible for global warming more than cars, trains, buses, planes, ships, all of that combined. And if you go vegan today, if you stop driving today, the carbon that you've put out in the air is going to be around for a little while. However, if you stop eating animals today, the contribution of the methane, especially that is in the atmosphere, goes to, it's a more fast-acting gas. It dissipates much faster, and we can achieve preservation of this creation much quicker.
No,
if that makes sense.
I understand your argument. I'm curious. I'm not widely read on Ingrid Newkirk. I've read things about it over the years and have sought out some of her quotes, and I had run into things over the years. So one of the things I see from her, and I understand she's the founder of PETA and
That's right.
She's the president, but she is not necessarily speaking for every member in everything she's saying, but you are all united in what she says the stated purpose is, which is total animal liberation, right?
What do you do? I think everyone would define animal liberation by something differently, and I think that many members of PETA, probably Ingrid Newkirk as well, would view that not as something forced on people, but rather something that people on their own consider and then reconsider their own actions. And it's achieved more through it would be something that would be achieved more by people making more compassionate choices than something forced on someone. I can see.
I'm curious about. I mean, you seem to argue for a lack of compulsion, and yet the PETA people are notorious for assaulting people wearing fur coats, throwing paint on them, and doing things like this. I mean, do you not view that as compulsion?
I think that's more of a more than anything, if anything, to my knowledge. Well, I've never done that, and I don't know of anyone that's actually done that.
But you know that you know that it's been done in the name of PETA, though, right?
It may have been. In the past, I don't think that that's something that I couldn't see that done right now. I can tell you that Jason, if I was to see you eating a McDonald's chicken sandwich, for example, now I could come up to you and slap it out of your hand and say, "What are you thinking, Jason? Boy, you nincompoop," Or I could come up to you and say, "Well, Jason, I see you enjoying the chicken sandwich, and I'm sure it's a great thing, but here's a few things you may want to consider. You may want to consider that if that chicken sandwich was purchased from McDonald's, there's a pretty good chance that animal was still fully conscious when it was thrown into scalding water. That animal may have suffered broken bones and cuts and even a slit neck while fully conscious and enduring extraordinary pain. Not only that, but Jason, if you were to consider instead perhaps a more humane, a less cruel, a more humane choice, such as a Boca veggie chicken patty burger, you may lose weight, your cholesterol will go down, you'll be able to preserve your temple, as many Christians see their bodies as a temple, a lot better. My father died of obesity when I was 18, and that really set me down the path to where I am today. At first it was self-preservation 100%. It was all about looking out for number one. But eventually, I saw the extraordinary cruelty. I saw I saw people starving, and I see what's being done to the earth, this God's creation, as it were, and I wanted to do something about it. And
well, let me flesh out a little bit here. I'm curious.
So to say.
Yes, so to say.
I'll let you flesh out all you want, Jason.
I
highly encourage that.
Okay. I'm curious because I see a theme through Ingrid Newkirk's statements, that there seems to be this exaltation of animals, but it's at the cost of human beings. And I'm curious, does PETA take the same kind of position in terms of calling for an end of abortions, and especially where in the late term, where you have, like in partial birth, where a child is partially delivered and its brain is sucked out while it's held in the birth canal. The child is feeling pain. The child is experiencing the same thing as the animal, but I've never heard PETA ever argue for any compassion towards that.
Well, I know that there are people on every side of every political argument in PETA. There are Bush supporters, there are Obama supporters, there are Nader supporters, there are pro-life supporters, there are pro-choice supporters. There are people on every spectrum of different beliefs. And
but does PETA take any kind of position on treatment of humans?
Yes, absolutely. A vegan diet is the best way to bring about a lot more compassion for our fellow humans, no matter what you see that down the road. As far as abortion specifically goes, I'm not aware of any position one way or another, and I think that that's that would be like asking a locksmith if they take a position on abortion. I think they're completely irrelevant.
But you're arguing for compassion on animals, and
Yes.
you say that people are animals, and yet there seems to be this hostility. Once again, Ingrid Newkirk said humans have grown like a cancer. We're the biggest blight on the face of the earth. And there just doesn't seem to be this same compassion. When a donkey was used to deliver a bomb in Israel, the donkey was blown up, and PETA issued a letter of protest to Yasser Arafat, protesting the blowing up of the donkey, but nothing was mentioned about him ever blowing up people.
Well, I'm not aware of that, and I think it would be quite the stretch to suggest that Ingrid Newkirk or any member of PETA would ever actually not feel extraordinary sadness for loss of human life in such a barbaric situation or any other cruel situation, be it on any humans, be it on any animals, human or non-human animals.
Okay. Let me go ahead and open up our phone lines. I want to continue the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you'd like to join in the conversation, the phone number here is 801-973-TV20. That's 801-973-8820. And we invite you to join in the conversation this evening. We have Mr. David Berg, a member of PETA. I can't seem to say that correctly this evening. Of PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, and also the director of the Utah Animal Rights Coalition. Now, in terms of the view of humanity, in Christianity, man is created unique of all the creatures. He is created in the image of God. He's created with reason, with many of the attributes of God, love, things like this, and he's meant to have communion with God. From a Christian perspective, this kind of worldview, it seems like, on the one hand, sort of a revival of monism and a lot of other, I hate to say pagan, but more nature religion kind of positions. But it seems to really undermine the humanity of man. Ingrid Newkirk, once again, she says, "I am not a morose person, but I would rather not be here. I don't have any reverence for life, only for the entities themselves. I would rather see a blank space where I am." This will sound like fruitcake stuff again, but at least I wouldn't be harming anything. And so, in reading her, I don't see that she does have any reverence for human life. And she argues very strongly against any special rights or privileges for human beings. When President Obama recently swatted a fly, PETA sent him a bug catcher.
Well, I understand that was a bit of a joke, actually.
I understand.
And they were only responding to much media coming to them, hey, what do you think about this? And they responded rightfully with the joke, but apparently I understand that they have the sales of humane mouse catchers, not only from PETA but from all sources around the country, went up surprisingly at the time. So-called humane bug catchers and mouse catchers. And
I'm curious, how is it that we're going to be able to have all these tofu burgers when, as I understand it, you would be against pesticides?
Well, I'm not against pesticides per se. In the end, I think that things are best if they were grown organically, but a lot of times, well, that's a whole nother thing where I disagree with most people that are on my side of the table on this, on the animal protection movement. But there's a growing concept of veganic that I'd like to see promoted a little more. I don't go out of my way per se for organic or not, because a lot of times in the so-called organically labeled products, they use a lot of slaughterhouse waste as on the fields. Let me state real quickly that according to the EPA, 95 to 99% of all pesticide, insecticide ingestion by humans comes through the meat, dairy, and eggs, including the fish they consume, because those toxins biocompound up the food chain. And when you eat an animal, or when you eat the discharge of an animal, the breast milk or eggs of an animal, you're eating essentially all the toxins that that animal ate over its entire lifetime in one bite, and that's why you get such a large.
Okay. Well, let me open up the phone lines.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have with us Mark from Salt Lake City. Good to have you with us.
Yes, I have more than just that one question. It appears like that you have on a wool or a wool blend suit. How do you account for that?
Oh, thank you. No, I'm glad you're concerned, as I am, about animals raised for clothing. This is actually a polyester suit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It looked.
Yeah, there are local sources as well as many internet sources for cruelty-free clothing, such as vegstore.com and veganessentials.com. There's a growing day by day of cruelty-free choices, as well as my watch band, which may or may not appear to be leather, but actually it's a high-quality Lorica imported from.
So you don't even use leather either?
No, I do not. I don't judge people who do, but I do advocate.
Do you feed your cats or dogs meat products?
I personally do not, actually. If you
Is that healthy for them?
It is, actually. If you go on vegancats.com, there is a link to a news article of, to my knowledge, the longest living dog, which was 28 at the time, who'd been fed a vegan diet from birth. Humans are naturally herbivores. Dogs are naturally omnivores, and cats are carnivores.
Yes, there's a lot of scientific evidence for that. But I have one last question.
That's right. And vegancats.com, if people want to
What happens if a person is allergic to wheat
or soy? Right, that's a great question. I know.
Where's the protein source going to come from? Thank you, and I'll listen when I hang up.
Okay, thank you.
There are many protein sources that are for those with celiac disease, same place that other natural herbivores get their protein, such as horses, cows themselves. Leafy greens are a great source of protein, as well as beans, legumes. I can never say that right. Pastas and such. And there are many gluten-free and soy-free products on the market, such as Sunshine Burgers. There's Vertical Diners, Sage's Cafe, the Living Cuisine and Sugar House, as well as Cakewalk Vegan Bakery in North Salt Lake, I'll provide a full list of gluten-free and soy-free items that I would encourage people to check out.
We have with us Crystal from Salt Lake City. Good to have you with us.
Hi, Crystal.
We have with us Crystal. Hello?
Hello?
You're on the air.
Oh, hi. My question was
Hello.
just to expand on, like, what one would eat on a cruelty-free diet, and a little bit more about the differentiation between digestive tracts of omnivores, carnivores, and herbivores.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. That's a really good question. As I'd mentioned before, some of the more common animals that we know, dogs are omnivores, cats are carnivores, humans are herbivores. A lot of the, and in mammals, you can see a lot of the different traits of the different, diets, as it were, that creation or who God, evolution, whatever you want to think is the source, what they intended that animal to consume. Omnivores and carnivores, for example, all have jaws that only go up and down. They can't go side to side like herbivores. They need that extraordinary strength of a fixed joint, as it were, to crush through skin and bone, as opposed to, and they have short tract digestive systems, so it goes in and out in just a matter of hours, as opposed to herbivores, which have long tract digestive systems, as well as about omnivores and carnivores have about 15 to 20 times more acidic stomachs. And most importantly, they have non-porous skin. The old saying that smells like something died in here is literally true when you're consuming animal products, and that's why Mother Nature afforded natural omnivores and carnivores only sweat through their tongues and the pads on their paws, as opposed to natural herbivores, which sweat through their skin. And I found that quite fascinating. A lot of people will refer to these as canines. They're not. If you look at the sharp teeth in the human mouth, it's pretty far cry from a carnivore like a cat or an omnivore like a dog. This is for ripping leafy greens and such. Could you imagine eating a salad if you had a mouthful of molars?
Let's go to Alan in Bountiful. Good to have you with us this evening.
Hi, Alan.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I just wanted to comment on a few things that have been said. I am a Christian. I'm a born-again Christian. For the past 15 years, I've been a vegetarian. I've eaten a little meat lately just because I've lost some weight because of loss of a friend and some emotional issues I've been going through. I'm a biologist. I'm a member of PETA. And I think it's generally regarded by most Christians that in the Garden of Eden, there was no meat consumption. It was essentially the perfect place to live. No animals were tortured. No animals were killed. And then when the fall of Adam brought on sin into our lives, we all became tainted. But then when Christ came, he referred to himself as the Lamb of God, and he willingly and knowingly allowed himself to be scourged, unfairly tried, and brutally crucified. And it's also a general tenet, I believe, of most Christian faiths that when Christ returns, the lion will lie down with the lamb. It will once again be a perfect existence. And I honestly believe in my heart, as a biologist, as a Christian, that God does not want us to exploit animals. He does not want us to eat flesh. I mean, yeah, there are a lot of people who do it now, and I know a lot of good Christians who get on me about not eating meat, but I'm also a member of Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, and I believe they have proven time and time again with many studies that it's generally a much healthier diet for not only for the individual eating a vegan diet, but for the environment, for the world at large. You can get into global warming, all these other issues.
Alan, I'm curious. How do you deal? I mean, it's one thing to say that something is preferable to something else, but you seem to be making a statement that it is wrong to eat animals, and yet we see that Jesus feeds animals to his disciples. We see that Peter is given this picture of the sheet let down from heaven, and you see these with these animals, and he says, "Arise, kill, and eat." And
well, I don't know if Jesus actually ever said kill and eat. I mean, I think the wording in the
read the
Bible,
book of Acts.
to interpretation, they say they are put here for your use.
No. He actually, the vision that Peter has is actually arise, kill, and eat. And you see the eating of animals by the Apostle Paul. You see Jesus, who can turn the water into wine, yet he provides fish for his disciples to eat. He eats himself from the Passover lamb. And so, it's one thing to say that something isn't preferable and that there may be reasons not to eat certain animals. But to say that it is wrong to eat animals is, how do you bind someone's conscience when the Word of God doesn't?
Well, and I don't know if it actually says in the Bible that he partook of the Passover meal. I'm only aware of one passage in the Bible where it actually says, after he was resurrected and returned in the upper room, where he took a small piece of fish and actually ingested it. Mm-hmm. But then again, you have to keep in mind, we are talking about fallen man. We're not talking about
not in the risen Christ. We're not, though.
I think many of the disciples were taken to the mat, if you will, by Jesus for being sinful, and he realized that we are all sinful. But I think in a perfect world, he also said, the lion will lie down with the lamb. And in the perfect world before the fall of Adam, I don't believe there was any mention of meat consumption. So yeah, that's the point. We're all tainted. We're all sinned. And Christ himself went through hell. I mean, he was scourged.
But are you saying that,
and yet
Jesus...
he willingly did it. He did it to pay our ransom for our sins.
I understand.
So yeah, perhaps it was necessary, as perhaps he's saying, while we are in this sinful body, perhaps it's necessary for us to eat the meat and to fall. And I also believe that one of the basic tenets is thou shalt not kill of Christianity. It doesn't say thou shalt not kill other humans or thou shalt not kill men. It's
Alan.
absolute. It simply says thou shalt not kill.
Alan.
Yeah.
I think you're in good company, Alan.
Well, actually, then how do you reconcile all the animal sacrifices that were set up there at the very same time that the Ten Commandments were given? This is a picking and choosing. It's one thing to say that you think something is preferable, but to say that thou shalt not kill means thou shalt not kill animals flies in the face of everything else that God gave Moses there at Mount Sinai. When he commands,
it does say that,
when he commands the
killing of animals. It does say in the Bible
animals,
there were animal sacrifices, but then again,
and they were to eat of those.
Gave himself as a sacrifice. He's not saying it's okay to murder me. He is saying, I am the Lamb of God. He even compared himself to an animal.
But you're not dealing with Sinai. How is it that thou shalt not kill means thou shalt not kill animals?
Well, it's an absolute.
It
says stop. Unless you're in a hurry, or unless you've got to get to the dentist and you've got a toothache. No, it's an absolute. And, that's my personal interpretation. I know there are many. That's why.
Have you ever studied it in the Hebrew?
But I honestly believe if Christ were alive today.
Alan, you've gone on for a bit now. We have other callers.
Well, if I could respond to Alan, I think you're in good company, and I'm a fan of the PCRM, which you mentioned, the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. If people want to really have questions regarding their diet, especially in regards to health, take a look at pcrm.org. I wish my father would have before he was taken from me by morbid obesity. And I'm reading, I have in front of me a publication from the Christian Vegetarian Association. And if people would like to investigate that a little further, it's at christianveg.com. That's christianveg.com. And they mention in there, it's the question, didn't God put animals here for our use? It responds saying Adam's dominion over animals in Genesis 1:26-28 says, we believe, over animals, we believe conveys sacred stewardship, since God immediately afterward prescribed a vegetarian diet in chapter 1, verse 29-30. In a world God found, quote, very good, that's in chapter 1, verse 31, created in God's image of love, and that's in 1 John chapter 4, verse 4, says we are called to be caretakers of God's creation. not tyrants over God's creatures. I think Mother Teresa put it well when she said, the animals too are created by the same loving hand of God which created us. It is our duty to protect them and to promote their well-being. And that's from Mother Teresa. And I think you're in good company, Alan. And I think a lot of good Christians, as they explore the Bible and especially look in some of there is a merciful God. And I think that merciful God would encourage compassion to all living humans and compassion to all creation.
That's like using the term love, though. I mean, it's nice to talk about love, but you're talking about something that you on the one hand, use the Bible to try to support these things in terms of the Christian Vegetarian Association.
Right.
Obviously, we're not to abuse the creation, but you can't pick and choose.
Exactly. I agree with you fully.
And the Bible is clear that, if thou shalt not kill means thou shalt not kill animals, which is not what it says in the Hebrew. The better translation is that thou shalt not murder, and it's the way it's actually shown in some of the more modern translations.
But it doesn't say humans or animals, does it?
Actually,
when it says thou shalt not murder, it doesn't qualify that with...
But see, there's a fundamental distinction in that the Bible is clear that man was made in the image of God, whereas, Ingrid Newkirk says a rat is a dog, is a pig, is a boy.
Well, Ingrid Newkirk said that. I didn't know, did I?
But she's the founder of PETA, and she has been outspoken that there's... That
she's entitled to her own opinions, but I don't think that her own opinions are necessarily, I don't think they're necessarily right or wrong, and I don't think they're necessarily subscribed to by the members of PETA, such as Alan in, I believe it's North Salt Lake.
Well, it wasn't given, but I see her view of the world as intimately involved with her view of animals, that there is an exaltation of animals, and at the cost of any recognition of special rights.
I don't see that. We disagree on that.
Well, she says there's no rational basis for saying that a human being has special rights. A rat is a pig, is a dog, is a boy. They're all animals.
I think she means in that respect that they're all deserving of compassion. They're all deserving of us not to abuse them. They're all equal in their deserving compassion, and they're deserving of consideration, and they're deserving of not being abused.
Let me squeeze something in here because we're almost out of time, and I apologize to those we can't get to on the phone lines, but I'm curious that Ingrid Newkirk has made clear that she has no problems with the Animal Liberation Front, and their violent protests, their torching laboratory facilities. PETA has actually contributed $45,000 towards the Rodney Coronado Support Committee, and $25,000 was loaned to the father of Ray Coronado, who is this leader of the Animal Liberation Front. They've gone around.
I don't think there's any. My understanding of the Animal Liberation Front is, which I am absolutely not, nor is she, nor is PETA. There is no. My understanding is there is no leader. There's no membership. If someone. But
Rodney Coronado, I mean, I've seen video of him instructing college students how to make Molotov cocktails to burn labs.
I'm not familiar with that, and I think that has no relevance any more than the Crusades and the brutal killing of non-Christians by Christians has to do with modern Christians. PETA urging others to become born again. I think there's no relevance.
You see no distinction. I mean, it's one thing for people who claim to be in support of animal rights or compassion or whatever.
Absolutely.
I mean, anyone can claim that, but PETA as an organization wrote a check for $45,000 to help support him during his trial for terrorism, and loaned $25,000 to his father that his father never had to repay.
I honestly don't know of the validity of that, and I don't see how, if that were true, it's necessarily relevant. Are you in favor of human slavery? Are you in favor of human slavery in the 19th century? Well, let me ask you this.
We have less than 2 minutes, so
do you
we're not going to be able
condemn
to.
or condone John Brown, for example?
John Brown?
Right.
You mean the man who hacked 3 men to death in cold
Right.
blood?
Exactly.
Yes, I condemn John Brown. John Brown was an anarchist.
What about the Underground Railroad? They broke laws. They harbored criminals. They were criminals. Is what they did wrong, or right? Is what they did in compassion for their fellow human beings right or wrong?
You make these comparisons, and I'm sorry, we're running out of time here,
No
but
problem.
you make these comparisons between human slavery and the Holocaust, saying that 6 million people died in concentration camps, but 6 billion broiler chickens will die this year in slaughterhouses. Right. And you draw these distinctions.
Well, I didn't say that, but it's been said.
Ingrid Newkirk said it in the Washington Post.
Well, I think...
but we're out of time, so I don't have time. But if I can just finish the thought and close here, if people want more information from you, they can contact PETA. But
I urge them to look at goveg.com.
Okay, we've got 42 seconds left.
Excellent.
So I see a radically different worldview and a radically different philosophy. And so,
well, I think compassion and loving.
If you would like to have more information about our church, we encourage you to go to christpres.net or to ancientpaths.tv. We meet Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. at 8630 West, 2700 South. That's here in the Salt Lake Valley. And we have evening worship at 5:30 p.m. We're going through the Gospel of Luke on Sunday mornings and 1 Timothy on Sunday night. Hope you can worship with us soon. Until next week, we wish you the Lord's blessings and hope to see you again next week. Good night.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it.